but let's hear your fourth question. We each got two more each.
Okay. Personal training. I was a person, my past life, I was a personal trainer out of Southern California, out of a gym called The Yard. And it catered to pretty much only pro athletes. We didn't have, it wasn't an open gym to common people. It was just pro athletes, all disciplines: football, baseball, hockey, soccer, tennis. We had Olympic athletes, swimmers, and all disciplines, pro athletes. So I, and this goes way, this will show you my age a little bit. I got my ACE certification, and and then um, and then I got to be an assistant personal trainer. And my second job, my first job was I got to run a gym and be a personal trainer, and that lasted about 9 months in Lake Tahoe. Then I moved to back to Southern California, my home, and I got an amazing opportunity to work with a gentleman by the name of Jeremy Subin, and he was the elite trainer to pro athletes, and especially in recovery. I worked with Mike Piazza, Jason Kendall, just a number of athletes, and I really got to learn what it was like to seriously train. I mean, for real, to be I don't even want to say a personal trainer, but that's what the term is. It's personal trainer. I got to see what that was like to be a real personal trainer. You are one on one with an athlete. When you back then, there was no there was no social media, there was no online training. None of that existed. This was, if you had a personal trainer, you actually had to go to your personal trainer and fulfill your session. And if you didn't go, you know, there were ramifications of that. You know, you suffered as an athlete. Um, Now in today's world, I just want to fast forward to today. Well, one more thing on that. It was very hands on. I mean, corrections could be made in real time. If you saw somebody bench or squat or something in their wrist or their leg or something was off, you as a trainer, you went up and you touched them. You corrected the elbow, you corrected the wrist, you corrected the knee, you moved their feet over for them and said, stand like this, and you'll see you got to correct the athlete in real time. Today, they're, and you're a trainer yourself, so you've seen this transition, the explosion of online training. This is just my personal point of view. This is not, I don't go online and say anything about this. It's just my personal point of view in this conversation. I don't feel that it's very effective to have online training when it comes to entry level people that are signing up for a trainer for the very first time. They're new to a gym, they're new to equipment, exercises. They're new. I don't feel that it's my personal opinion. Again, I'm probably going to catch some shit for this, but it's my personal opinion that I don't think it's right. I think you have to have a personal trainer there in the beginning. Now, where I do feel it fits in are for athletes that are conditioned, that have been through maybe even a few personal trainers and been through all types of training disciplines. When now you have somebody that sets up a little camera, they go do the exercise, come back, save that, send it to their trainer. Their trainer hopefully is professional enough to watch the video and try their best to critique from whatever angle that camera happened to be sitting at that commercial gym. It's usually not the best angle, especially for a trainer. For myself, I've watched these videos, and for the most part, people are posting the same video that they sent to their trainer. They're not shooting one for us, one for social media, and then one for the trainer. But for a lot of times, they're sending the same video. So I'm looking at this as a trainer, and I'm like, well, this is, first of all, this exercise, this is a horrible angle for me to try to figure out. I can't even see your left leg. I'm only seeing your right leg. I can't even tell if your left leg is in the right spot or not. I can't tell if your back is I can't tell your core. I can't tell a lot from a video that's shot from this one direction, this one way. And that's how personal trainers online are navigating and training these people. And I feel it's really watering it down. Um, Again, now you send an online training program to an athlete that is amateur level on up, you're no longer really too focused on the minutia of the movements. You're focused on intensity or resting or whatever you're focused on. It's not that kind of personal attention that is required at the level lower than that. But I also see that that's where the bread and butter is for a lot of these online trainers, is the people that are coming in that are newer, uh, younger to training. Um, in your experience as a trainer, what are your thoughts and what are your feelings on first of all, the difference between a personal trainer being with you, standing with you, correcting you, making the adjustments, giving you that, hey, go, or giving you that intensity, giving you what you need as, and then also just this, I feel there's this copy paste mentality. I see one trainer put something out and it's really obvious who is the trainer because they all posted underneath trained by, so I know who's following who's training under who. I can see that regiment go out and then I can see it duplicated a few times because that person is also a trainer. So I feel there's some copy pasting going on. um, I'm not, again, this is just me, I'm not super comfortable with the online training explosion that took place and how people are probably not getting the true training that they would if you say somebody was standing right with them. And the results, I mean, you're paying somebody good money for results. And how do you feel about that as the online and explosion, how that's going, and how do you navigate that when I don't even know how you do yours. So I'm
Yeah,
actually curious on how you navigate that with, do you have your athletes shoot from different angles, or how do you navigate that online training world with maybe athletes that are not so seasoned, um, versus the ones you are? And what's the sort of the future of training? How does that look to you? Um, what today? Give me today, and what does it look like tomorrow?
yeah. So I first want to agree with you 100% that the best and most optimal case scenario for anyone who's being trained or coached is to have that trainer or coach there with them in real time. If they can be with them physically, then that's the best case scenario. You can see things from whatever angle you want. You can make adjustments to every little minute detail. And I think that's very important, especially for the newbie, learning the basic fundamentals of biomechanics, not to mention complex equipment where you need to you can cut off so much of a learning curve if you have someone there specifically to guide. And even for the seasoned athlete, it's still the best case scenario to have your coach there with you physically, seeing everything as it happens, understanding how you're affected by that exercise immediately after, how you recover from it, how you attack the next one, the mental aspects to it too, to see it all play right there in person. That being said, the cost of the trainer or the coach being there in real time constantly can be a lot higher than that one monthly cost of sending out a program, or being available at online disposal. And I'll touch back on that shortly. But what I also want to say is, strongman specifically is a very niche sport. I know if I were to just seek out strongman clients in my part of Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley, it's a very small demographic of people. I'm going to be hard pressed to find every prospective athlete who wants to have a strongman coach, and even more hard pressed to find those athletes who can afford having a strongman coach. But you now offer that in the online realm, and you can have someone who is in Maryland who is exactly fitting the mold of what I want in an athlete and a client, but they're separated by over 1,000 miles from me. Then that has to be online, unless we want to start talking about the expenditures of long distance flights or car travel. So there are those hurdles. And just like, COVID played a large role in the live streaming need in this sport and how ADL was able to fill that niche, COVID also played a large role in how online coaching proliferated even more so. Certain gyms were closed for some people, open for others. People had garages to train out of. Some people didn't. You have all these different factors of people spread out in their own little corners, needing that direction, but not necessarily being able to meet face to face. So you have that. But what we always circle back to is the cost and the dollar amount of one person's time. If I had an athlete who wanted to do nothing but personal training sessions with me, to where I was with them, let's say they train even just 3 times a week, I was with them for those 3 days every single week throughout the entire month, the bill for that type of training is going to be significantly higher than if I were to just send them a program and be there ready to analyze their videos, so-and-so, through online means. So there's that. And when you have a newbie athlete, they're not necessarily the best example of someone who's able to see everything, to see this price tag on the coaching and understand the value of having that. All they see is a price tag and be like, well, I know how much my college bill is this semester. I know how much my books are. I know how much food costs and how much rent is. I can't afford that. Or I can, but it would be a stretch, and I don't at least see the value of what I'm getting out of it, sort of thing. So there's that. And for me personally, above all else, I hate wasting my time. I hate wasting my time. I don't want to be the guy who caters to every individual out there, who tries to convince people why they should be doing what they're doing. That's not me. And that's a path to a lot of wasted time. So I only want those athletes who are ready to put forth all that work, who kind of have at least that basic understanding of where they want to aim to. And even if I have a totally blank slate, like a person who's never been in the gym before and they want to get started, walking the path to strongman, if they have the drive and motivation enough to pursue it, I don't want to shun them away, even if they have zero experience. But I will have to stress the importance of how involved I need to be with them, and how there's going to be a significant price tag attached to that. They're going to get what they paid for in value, but they are going to have to be able to swallow that price tag, because that is a significant amount of my time that I'm investing as well. So that being said, the way I navigate the realm of this, the needs of the individual versus the exact dollar amount of my time, I offer different coaching packages. I have one that's just the base program only. Like, you will get a program every week of the month. We can communicate through email as needed, and that's it. I have another more involved coaching package where you get your program totally customized to you. We can communicate through email and text as needed. I can give you your video critiques as needed, and that's it. And then I have my elite package, which is the most expensive of the 3, but they've got access to me through my phone line whenever they need it. They can send me for reviews, videos, questions, whatever they need on a whim. We schedule phone calls every week. I communicate with them very intensely and effectively, to where when they are sending me their videos, we've already talked about, like, okay, on this lift, I need you recording from this angle, or I need to see how your body is operating from this angle. There is that high level of communication there. And although we have the physical obstacle of being so far apart, there's the communication. But with that communication comes more time, more hours spent. And that does unfortunately have to translate to a higher price tag. If you have an individual who's willing to pay that because they see the value in it, well, then that is the ideal client. And that's the one that I want to have taking up a spot under my team. Because even that, the team aspect, or the totality of athletes that I have under my wing, that's a finite number, just like the finite number of spaces in my gym. I don't want to fill it up with as many people as possible. No, I want a select few of people who understand the value of the work at play and are willing to do that. They're willing to pay the cost, pay the sacrifices outside of the physical financial cost, and do the damn work. And it's a hard mold to fit, but the coach has to be selective, and just rightfully so, the client has to be selective too. They have to understand, they have to do their due diligence, research the coach, communicate effectively, and know what they're getting out of it, what they're not getting. And I mean, when you're going into the online marketplace where you can have someone who's got the elite level of certification or someone with no certifications and their actual real world experience varies from person to person, it's a hard place to navigate. But that being said, the advantage of having a coach in someone's corner, I've been my own coach my whole life, and I've had to do a lot of hard learning along the way. There's been torn biceps, torn muscles, injuries, lots of learning that if I had someone coaching me that I could have maybe, instead of it taking 4 years to get my pro card, maybe it would have only taken one. But there's a cost to that. There is a cost to that, and it's not easy for people to see that, the value behind that cost, and that's where the discrepancy is. I do think that online coaching is it's here to stay. It's here to stay. I do think it is a necessity, just because of the physical distances between coach and athlete sometimes, and how you will not have a very wide demographic to select from of people who understand deeply what it's going to take to walk this path. I'm not going to find 10 of those people here in South Texas, I can tell you that. But I can sure as hell find 10 of them in this country. So there's that.
So the future is definitely has online involved, which I agree. What does that look like for the in-person personal training of the future?
For the in-person trainers, because it is in person, the in-person trainer is not really able to follow niche sport outlets. I can't be here and effectively make money off of my own in-person training business if I want only strongman athletes. I would have to broaden that to, okay, I want strongman athletes, but I'll also take powerlifters, I'll take bodybuilders, I'll take football athletes, I'll take basketball athletes, anyone who's willing to build strength. Now I've opened my doors, to more of a demographic, but I've also increased the potential for me to be wasting my time in terms of, like, I might get an athlete who's with me 1 month and then they're gone the next. And that's purely just because their head wasn't in it. And I don't want to be the person trying to be like, no, your head needs to be in it for this reason. So that's the struggle that the in-person coach has to face.
That's with ADL also, is we are making a push to diversify. Strongman's not going to carry ADL. Just simple as that. It's not going to carry ADL. So we are getting into MMA. We're getting into jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai. We're going to be doing a powerlifting, strength wars down in your neck of the woods. As a matter of fact, well, not too Corpus Christi, as close as I can get to you.
Texas Terms is 3 hours away. That's just a small little car ride. That's very close.
So
practically across the street.
We'll be doing Strength Wars 2023. That'll be sort of our debut into powerlifting. We did a few small powerlifting meets with big techs. They were on the side. We kind of got a feel for it. If you're a powerlifter, my hat's off to you that you can. That's a long day. That's a really long day. My hat's off to you.
Oh, yeah. I think, yeah, those are very long days.
You have to endure the entire day there. And it is, you want to cheer and you want to, it is obviously there's accomplishments that are happening that you cheer for, but it doesn't have that battle, that battle component to it, if you will, that, when you have two people going down head to head on a yoke run or a stone back and forth, there's that battle component that, I'm going to be honest with you, ADL loves, and we want to stay with that. That's kind of why we stayed away from bodybuilding, although we would love to open our doors to bodybuilding and stream of that. it's way too subjective of a sport for us. The judges are very subjective. It doesn't have. I love strongman. You either lift it or you don't. There's no like really personal opinions involved here. So we've stayed away from bodybuilding. Maybe in the future we'll test. We'll dip our toe in the water, but it'll be. I mean, I hate to say this, but it'll be more financial decision than it will be something that we're super amped and excited about. Bodybuilding. I have 2 or 3 cameras. They're going to land on that X on the stage. They're going to hit 7 poses or whatever the the poses are necessary, and then they're going to walk off to the left. It's it's a little too easy for us. The challenge isn't there, but the amount of athletes that competitor number 422, come up, stand to your right. The numbers, by the sheer numbers mathematically, it would make us a lot of money. You know,
and we come up to the issue of how being spoiled as strongmen viewers and athletes. So we love the fire and the excitement of those contest days, and sometimes, okay, not sometimes, all the time, powerlifting and bodybuilding pales in comparison to that aspect of it. But they have the following. These two sports, they have an immense following. And you know what, Don? That is because the viewership has been there for such an extended amount of time.
Yes.
Bodybuilding shows have had camera. The essence of bodybuilding is cameras and lights on these figures. And powerlifting, this is a sport where, it throughout the nation, it's been there for a while, but here in South Texas, it recently became a UIL high school sport in the past 5 years. So when you have youth athletes being able to open or to go into these open doors into this sport, you've got their parents, you've got their family following, and all of a sudden you have this sport that has proliferated to this giant viewership. If the cameras are there covering it, people can watch. And strongman hasn't been there historically yet, but that has now changed over the past 2 years. We are definitely working on that. So hopefully the financial hardships of, not being able to cover strongman nonstop, those gaps are going to start to bridge more and more, because I do see more money coming into the sport. That's just the reality.
Yes, 100%. We've been watching, and in full transparency, we have brands that are knocking on our door now. How do we get involved with the live stream? It was in our plan the entire time to make something that was commercially wanted. The brands would want to be involved in sponsoring and getting involved with the live stream, because that's how television works. The show Friends, that's not what made the money, is those people, those characters. It was the advertisers that made all the money. And if you want to look at television and understand how TV works, Thursday night is the biggest night for advertising of any night of the week. Thursday night being because advertisers know that the general population in the world gets paid on Friday, and they need to remind you on how to spend your money. They need to remind you on that you have to go buy this car, or you need to go get this thing for your house or something. So Thursday night is the biggest night for television. That's why your biggest shows are always on Thursday night. Your biggest draws are always on Thursday night. That's prime time right there. That's the highest dollar that any advertiser is going to pay to be involved with that show. We want to follow that path and create that mechanism for advertisers to be able to get involved with strongman and promote. And we're already seeing that now. Just in all fairness, we got a lot more knocks on our door after the Shaw Classic.
That's exciting stuff, man. And that's the essence of growth in this sport, is the growth follows the dollar signs. And, yes, it's when you have the roots of this sport as being nothing but parking lot shows, there's not really a lot of marketability there, or at least in comparison to a giant Megatron screen or live streams or,
yes,
different ways we can attach sponsors to this. So it's exciting stuff, man. I'm glad to hear that those potential sponsorships are in the works. You ready for this next one?
Yes, I am.
This is on the subject of weight classed strongmen and strongwomen. Okay. So not the open divisions. ADL has streamed several of the Clash Super Series shows at this point and even worked with ESPN in the process. There has always been a disparity between the weight class athletes and the open divisions in terms of following and people viewing it. Being on ground zero of the growth of this weight class realm of the sport, what does the future look like from here? You've seen the growth start to take shape. I mean, Anthony Furman and the Clash, strength lead and the Clash shows are really giving a lot of these weight class athletes opportunities that they haven't had before. Where does it go from here? I mean, you've been there working it. What do you see?
I definitely see its growth. I see. Um, that's a pretty good question. That's a very good question.
Is there ever a point where the 200-pound strongman gets the same audience as the 400-pound strongman?
I hope so. I hope so. I'm gonna start with one class in particular. I'll say two classes. I'm gonna start with the 64 women, the 64 class women, 64 kilo women, in Plano that we just had not too long ago, and then the 105s that you're referring to that we went to ESPN with. Those two, I'm just gonna use those as examples for the moment. Um, Television works on ratings and advertisers. What, for lack of a better phrase here, term or word, it's very sexy and it's very relatable. The 105 class, um, an outlet like ESPN or any other outlet, Fox Sports, could be anybody, but it happened to be ESPN right now, right there. Um, they need relatability. They can't, they're television audience, somebody sitting at home and sees a monster athlete lift a car above their head. Okay, well, obviously insane example, but you get it. The viewer at home is like, well, obviously he can. Look at him. It's very odd. It's unrelatable, but they are looking at it saying, well, quite obviously he can lift that car above his head. Look at him. He weighs 400 pounds. He's a monster. Whereas the 105 class, the guy at home eating nachos, he's like, well, I look just like that guy. Uh, I can do that. Well, you're talking about Nicholas Camby here. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do what Nick Camby's doing or any other one of those amazing 105 athletes. Um, I, I, I see the contrast for sure from a consumer point of view and from somebody who's been in television and understands what sells and what doesn't. Not every weight class is going to sell for broadcast. It's not going to happen. But the 64 women, 64 class women, I had no idea that was going to. That was probably one of our highest viewed shows of the weight class shows that we did.
So these are our lightweight women, our 140 pounds and under class.
Yeah, that show it set me back. I had no idea. I had no idea. So I take the 64s and I take the 105s and I put them in their own group. There was the highest viewership that ADL has had as far as the weight class shows are concerned. It was the highest viewer, highest amount of shares. Just the online explosion of people talking about it was also tells you something about it. What's interesting about from ADL's point of view, because as you alluded to, we're on the other side of the wall and we see things. The open class is much more supported by all athletes. All open athletes seem to support the open athletes. What we've seen is the the 90s support the 90s. 64s support the 64s. 105s support the 105s. I I I don't I don't see them growing at the individually. I don't see them growing at the pace that the open class grew and is growing by nature of I wish the 105s supported the 64s, and I wish the 64s supported the 91s. I wish the 91s supported, I wish they all crossed over, but they are very much in their own lane, and we see it by nature of like the ramp up on social media that leads to that show and all the athletes that are behind it. And then we see our show go off, we see the numbers on our show, and then immediately after that it just drops. I mean, it's a hard drop until we do the next class, and then that class rises back up again. I wish we could see a level. I wish we could see strongmen just supporting strongmen for the purposes of supporting strongmen. It doesn't matter what class you're in, you should be supporting that class too. And I had a pretty good talk about this with Nick up in Baltimore. If you want to follow him, Uncle Nick on Instagram. Nick, he has seen it too in his career, and he was voicing his opinion with me in a candid conversation about he wishes that the classes would support each other more, because the what is it, the a rising tide raises all ships,
Yep.
Mentality. The weight classes, the ones that are most relatable for television will make it to television eventually. The ones that are not, the ones that are more, lack of a better word, obscure, a little bit, more or less noticed, or I don't know, they're not going to rise as fast. I'm gonna say it again. I wish all strongmen in all classes supported all classes just for the purpose of supporting strongman. Whereas the open class, open.
Yeah.
Everybody supports everybody.
You know what I think it is on that subject? I think with these weighted class athletes, and just from observations that I've seen in my time in the sport, the disparity that has been between the classes, I feel like they only support themselves because they're fighting for whatever opportunity they can get. And if they go support the other classes, well, then the opportunities are so scant and far between that they might get, or at least in their eyes, that other class might get the opportunity instead. So there is this kind of like, for lack of a better phrase, picking at scraps sort of thing, just because of the way it has been. But just because the way things have been for a certain amount of time has shaped this phenomenon in the athletes supporting only their lane, it's a fatalist approach, because you don't have that rising tide. You just have very small little lanes of support that vanish as soon as it's done. And I think there is this need for the athlete to understand that we are on a trend of growth. And if you want to ride this wave of growth, you need to support the sport as a collective and not be, shunning certain divisions. Or I know Strongman Corp has even gotten away from using the word divisions because of what feeling it implies, dividing up instead of using the word weight class. And I mean, there has to be this level of unity. And I think it sucks that, weight class athletes have not had similar opportunities historically, but it's another thing of following the trail of money and where the money leads. And when you get sponsorships or sponsors putting money in the things that are highly viewable, that's the reality. That gives you even more reason to try to support the growth of the sport as a whole, because you get that trickle down, and that rising tide raises all ships. It could not be more true. So I hope that more athletes can kind of see this unity and understand that we're not all out to take things from each other. Rather, we want to give them to each other. And a lot of what we're talking here can be equally said, just speaking on the differences between strong men and strong women in this sport. And that's a whole nother conversation, but there needs to be that level of supportive unity across all weight classes, I feel, for us to truly recognize the potential that this sport has as a collective to grow right now, here in this age of modern day live streaming, like we're talking about, of bringing this experience to viewers all over rather than just who shows up to that parking lot on that day, and it is quite exciting. But
from our point of view, from a support point of view, it would just be awesome if, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm dogging anybody by any stretch of the imagination. I support everybody, and just these are just observations of mine. But I do wish that the amount of promotion and intensity and energy put into any one class, I wish when theirs was over that they pushed it over to the next one, and then when that was over, those two pushed it on to the third one, and then those three pushed it on to the fourth one. Um, I think that's just how. And this is newer, like you said, the Clash series. They're what, a year old, I think, if so, if that. Um, it is newer. It probably needs another year or two to take hold before those individual classes start really supporting each other and understand, oh, this is actually the betterment for all. You know, Enterprise rental car. Well, I'm just trying to pick a national brand that kind of makes sense. Enterprise rental car. You know, if they see the common thread and the common support, and all of them are coming up, Enterprise would be more willing and more likely to support all of the shows, like say buy out the live stream for all of our shows. Right now, we do very specifically we have potential brands, and they're knocking on our door about very specific weight classes. Um, but they're also viewing that from their lens of research. They're seeing, wow, this didn't have a lot of support, but this one did. We're going to get a lot more bang for our buck if we put our dollars over here. Um, that lack of support from any one of the groups is sort of cutting themselves short, like you alluded to earlier. It sort of cuts themselves short. If they all came together as a collective and pushed the entire thing, I think you would find more interest in national brands, not such localized brands. I think that the growth of those, I think that the growth of all of these requires new brands to come in. I mean, you're wearing a shirt right now. They can only afford so much money. I mean, and you have, I mean, just go to Iron Podium and just scroll. You know that every one of those promoters has hit depth up for money. They're one of the very few. And that needs to grow. That pool of people that you can knock on the door and ask for money for your comp needs to grow. The only way that's going to grow is if everyone comes together and pushes the sport up. If you stay focused on your class, you're going to get sponsors that are interested in that.
there's one more thing, one more phenomenon with this specific thing that I want to bring into light. And I know we've spent a lot of time on this one question already, but it's almost like it defeats itself just in the nature of what weight class strongman is, because you have with the open divisions, you have one class that represents it all, whether it's just the open men or open men and open women. But then when you go to weight class athletes, you break down this one source into multiple. And if you do a weight class strongman competition day and you have all of these weight classes, you have a very long day. And one reason why the Giants Live model works so well is you have these shows in and out within 2 hours for the for the athletes and the fans. But if you have even 3 competitive classes for both men and 3 competitive classes for women, and you run them all on the same day for a weight class event, you've got 6 classes moving through X amount of events each day. You've got 8, 10, however many hour days. The viewers aren't going to want to stay tuned for that long. So I think one of the recipes for success also while keeping the unity of support across the weight classes, knowing how to effectively walk the line in planning events that showcase these weight classes in a way that the spotlight is on them uninterrupted for that time. And it doesn't have to be extended precariously into the realm of, viewership time that doesn't want to be there for that long. That's a hard line to walk. And then you have to start talking about doing, which Clash is already doing well, where you have, the Clash of the 80s or the Clash of the 90s. You have the weight class specifically for that one contest. But that's a fine line to walk also, because there is that very real division between that show and the next weight class up or the next weight class down, whenever that one is. There just has to be more support. And it's an optimistic sort of outlook, but it's a tough thing to do. And I don't think it's outside of our ability to do collectively as a whole, to give it the support that it needs. But it is very new in a lot of ways.
It's you alluded to it just a second ago, or you spoke of it, the time frame. That's another thing that there's a reason ESPN bit on that particular live event, that was very uncommon. I mean, that obviously you know more. That you don't see a lot of live on television strongman shows. That just doesn't, because the time management. You can't go to television with something more than an hour to 2 hours. It's just not going to happen unless you're the U.S. Open or NFL. But if you can manage an open show of some nature and you can keep it at 2 hours, you're going to get the attention of broadcasters and outlets, distributors. That's what the Clash series has, and what we've been working with the Clash series for throughout the whole duration of this has been meeting that 2 hour time limit. That's been like, we have to hit 2 hours. Now, again, we've spent a little time on this, but what that does do is, for you, the athlete, there is no downtime. I mean, if you get a small enough field of athletes that can do 5 events in 2 hours, you're moving through those events. You're not getting downtime. I mean, and that's been probably one of the number one things I've heard from athletes is that they need a break. I just lifted this. Now I got to pull this. Now I got to push that. Now I got to throw this. It's so fast that I think what we're going to find is a new breed of athlete that will emerge if we can continue to grow towards a commercial kind of outlet, and we do make this a palatable 2 hours, not 8 hour day. If we can make this a palatable 2 hours, that changes the athlete. Now the athlete has to be so much more conditioned. Their cardio has to be up now. This is almost a cardio event involved now, a cardio component added to the strongman contest. They're out. I mean, they're going into that next event and they're breathing hard from the last event, whereas in typical strongman shows you have this break, which is usually the implement change, when the breaking down of this and then the rebuilding of this implement gives the athlete this amount of time. Well, the Clash series and ADL together have made that switch so fast, so efficient, that we're trying so hard to hit that 2 hour time frame that it will create a new breed of athlete, I think. I made a post about this a while ago, and I got rained on, man. Boy, did I get rained. I opened up a can of worms on this one, but I said we're watching the next level of athlete. When I watched the Rogue thing, the Rogue, where the girls were throwing those sandbags up on their shoulders and were setting. I mean, it was like, wow, wait a minute, that's a strongman event. What is this girl who just ran a quarter mile up and down a hill with things on her back, went up and down a rope, did 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, and then did the bag thing, and then went and did another 100 something. That's a different breed of athlete. Well, that's creeping into strongman a little bit at that level of commercial viability. Is that athlete now is no longer your typical strongman athlete. They have to be conditioned to be able to handle a fast-paced 2 hour event.
You're telling me about this need for the athlete to have to handle a quick turnover like that, and even talking about athletes that complain about it being too fast. And I'm here thinking, like, those athletes are softies and they need to be conditioned a little bit harder, because, like, the reality is, like, if you if you are doing well in strongman, you will go towards the end of your competitive group. If you are not doing well, you will be the first to go. So I mean, if you're struggling to catch your breath after an event before you go, well, then you got to get back to the drawing board and be better at what you're doing so that you are not the one who's placing last towards the end. And that's such a super harsh thing to say, but this is strongman. There's no sugarcoating this sport. And at the same time, even on a fast-paced Giants live show, even on an event where I've, let's say, zeroed or I got last at the car walk in Glasgow last year, and that put me up as the first to go in the next event. Even in that quick turnover, I still had 5 minutes. I still had at least 5 minutes before I was going again. So 5 minutes is a blink of an eye, compared to what we're used to traditionally in our downtimes from the sport, but it's still 5 minutes. And I think what you're going to wind up having, if that becomes the status quo, you're going to have more healthy individuals who have not been lazy with their cardio. And I think you're going to have a lot more healthy hearts in the process too. So I think it is something that is going to be tough for people to swallow at first. But if this winds up resulting in bigger prize purses, bigger sponsorship opportunities, stadiums being filled, TV time, then to catch your breath a little quicker is a small price to have to pay. And you can easily condition yourself, especially if it means a couple more extra potential grands in your pocket afterwards. So I think that's something that needs to happen. And I have really, really enjoyed the Giants live shows that I've done. They have been quick and they hit very hard. But when you're done with a competition in the same amount of time that would normally take you to complete a training session, that's pretty freaking awesome, if you ask me.
And it's very palatable, and the viewer experience is